Oh, give us no.
Judge Gilbert, can you hear us?
I'm letting him back in now.
Now, don't hold this against me. I'm making a plea right now. This 5-minute delay. We're gonna blame Phil for that, okay, everybody? Public questions and comment portion available today, meeting to last up to 15 minutes, a total of 3 minutes per speaker. Are there any person wishing to speak today?
No speakers today.
The first item is a presentation by Provost Cobb. Provost Cobb.
Good afternoon, everyone. The room is full. I like it. So I'm proud to introduce SIUE's presentation today. After more than 20 years in temporary space, the completion of the health science complex brought our School of Pharmacy into a home befitting its strength. And within that context, I wanted to take this opportunity to highlight their good work. So Dean Mark Luer will provide a brief overview of the School of Pharmacy and their outstanding outcomes and impact. Then you will have the opportunity to hear from Dr. Bhargav Patel from our Pharmaceutical Sciences program about his NIH-funded research program that is part of our drug discovery team. His work is strengthened by Amrita Talukdar, a doctoral student in the cooperative PhD program with the SIU School of Medicine. So I will step aside and turn it over to our School of Pharmacy team.
Thank you, Provost Cobb, and greetings, everyone. I, along with Dr. Girish Gupta, arrived at SIUE in 2004 as part of the original administrative team tasked with developing a new School of Pharmacy to address the pharmacist shortage in Illinois by creating an educational pathway for Illinois residents to become pharmacists. That's what I just covered. All right, so a year later, the result was a Doctor of Pharmacy degree program, or the PharmD. And we graduated our first class in 2009. Since that time, we've become fully accredited and produced almost 1,300 graduates. Importantly, and consistent with our mission, 85% of all of the students have come from Illinois, and 75% have come from Central and Southern Illinois. If you look at the map on the right-hand side, you'll see the state of Illinois and the surrounding regions. Each dot represents an individual that has come to our program. As you see from the distribution of these markers, we've touched virtually every part of the state. Our overall graduation rate is 96%. Our first-time work pass rates encompassing all 17 graduating classes ranks #1 in the state. So we're not just attracting students. We're getting them to the finish line and introducing them into the profession as licensed pharmacists. And while these data capture the big picture and speak to our purpose, if you look more squarely at where we are today, in the spring of last year, the class of 25 had a 97% postgraduate residency match, which was not only #1 in the state, but #6 in the country out of 142 schools and colleges of pharmacy. That shows that our graduates are not just competitive, but in high demand. Now let's fast forward to this academic year, and the School of Pharmacy, as mentioned, has finally found a permanent home in the Health Sciences Center along with the School of Nursing. And we enrolled the largest first-year cohort in the pharmacy school in our history. I think it's safe to say that school, as a school, we are trending in a very positive direction. Now, as the PharmD program matured, we began to set our sights on graduate degree programming. In 2016, we established the Master of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences. And in early 2020, just with the pandemic, this expanded with the development of the cooperative PhD program. The cooperative PhD program is part of a multidisciplinary graduate degree, which brought together departments from the SOE School of Pharmacy and the SIU School of Medicine. I think it's important to note that this effort built upon what we now have as 2 decades or 20 years of collaboration between our schools that we've already had in patient care and clinical education. But now we're extending it into graduate education and research. The development of the cooperative PhD really formalized a new combined effort centered on drug design and discovery, and did so with existing infrastructure and expertise. Both schools have pharmacology, but the School of Pharmacy brought unique knowledge and expertise in the field of medicinal chemistry to this collaboration. Now, with that in mind, I would like to turn over the presentation to Dr. Bhargav Patel, a synthetic medicinal chemist and an assistant professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, and ask that he showcase some of the exciting work that's being realized in the school. Dr. Patel.
Thank you, Dr. Luber. Good afternoon, members of the board, President Mahoney, and everyone. I'm pleased to represent our pharmaceutical science faculty and our cooperative PhD program with this SIU School of Medicine. We're excited to share our work on a new way to slow down cancer growth by targeting cancer growth by mRNA translation inhibition, which is how cells make proteins. This is a collaborative project between my lab and my colleague, Dr. Schobert. So at the School of Pharmacy, we have several drug discovery programs that focuses on major diseases such as Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. For today's presentation, however, we are going to focus on our cancer research and how it could lead to safer and more effective treatment. Innovation is driven by drug discovery and teamwork. Our cancer therapeutics team comprises of students at various stages, such as PhD, masters, and undergraduate, all contributing and learning at every step of the way. So going to the discovery part, why cancer? So in many ways, the answer to this question is obvious to everyone in this room who has been impacted by this disease. Cancer remains the second leading cause of death in the US, just after heart disease. But unlike heart disease, the survival rate has not improved for cancer over the period of many years, which is why we urgently need new treatments. So to understand how to make better treatments, first we need to understand how cancer grows and why current drugs fail. So cancer grows when certain proteins go out of control. Now, most of the drugs in the market, they target one such cancer-causing protein, leaving room for other proteins to be used by the cancer, so there's adaptation to survive. This ultimately results in treatment resistance. So we asked, what if we can block the production of all such cancer-causing proteins at once? So to do so, we're exploring 2 strategies. The first one is cutting off the supply of the protein building blocks by targeting LAT1. The second one is stopping the protein production machinery by targeting EIF4F. So I'll go over these 2 topics briefly in the next 2 slides. LAT1. LAT1, think of it as a doorway. So the doorway that cancer cell uses to bring in amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks for the proteins. So if we block this doorway, the building blocks cannot come in. So cancer cells cannot make the proteins that it needs to survive, right? And in this area of research, there is no marketed drug yet. But with the support from SIUE STEP grant and my startup grants, we have generated several promising LAT1 blockers. That work has led us to successful submission of NIH and American Cancer Society proposals that are under review for discovery of new blockers. And we have also filed a disclosure to our tech transfer office for a new LAT1 blocker screening method that could have some potential commercial value. The second strategy is mRNA translation, which is basically stopping the protein production machinery itself. So the process of protein production is called mRNA translation, and the key machinery involved is called EIF4F. So once the building blocks are in, EIF4F takes those building blocks and makes all the proteins. We are very excited to have discovered a novel molecule, EEG29, that has displayed exciting or very effective EIF blocking activity. As a side note, the first E stands for Edwardsville because it was discovered here. This work is supported by a 4-year NIH grant, which is active, and we are in the 3rd year of this 4-year grants. We also plan to submit a discovery disclosure to our tech transfer office soon, which could have a substantial potential for growth and commercialization. So with that, I will hand over to Amrita, who is a first-year co-op PhD student. She's very passionate about this project, and she'll share more details about this project.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. So think of the cell as a tiny factory, and the main job of this tiny factory is to make proteins. Now, the instruction to make these proteins are stored in the DNA, which is like a master recipe book that stays safely locked inside the cell. Instead of taking the whole book out, what the cell does is it makes a copy of one page, and that's the mRNA that has the instructions to make the proteins. And the cell has its own protein-making production machinery, which we will call the EIF4F complex. Now, the EIF4F complex is a machinery, and the parts of this machinery have to be in close contact with each other. Our aim is to break apart some of the components, the 4E and the 4G protein, with the drugs that we make in our lab. So cancer cells rely on several pathways in order to survive, and the currently marketed drugs might just target one component of one signaling pathway. So the protein making machinery that I talked about, the EIF4F complex, is at a key bottleneck, which means that all of these pathways that cancer cells use to survive, they meet at this bottleneck merging point. That means that if we can disrupt the EIF4F complex, which we're trying to do in our lab, we will be able to shut down all the other pathways that the cancer cells are reliant on. But this part of drug discovery process is very challenging because this EIF4F complex is very difficult to break apart. There are scientists and many groups who have tried to do that but have failed. But not us, because we have actually discovered a drug called the EEG29 that Dr. Patel talked about. And EEG29 showed that we were able to break the EIF4F complex with our product, the EEG29. The only other compound that was found 20 years ago at Harvard Medical School called the 4EGI1, that was the only other molecule that helped to break apart the EIF4F complex, but it doesn't compare with us because it's not suitable for human use because it does not specifically target cancer cells. Our studies have shown, and we've seen it in our lab, that the EEG29 is better in terms of this Ki value because it means that lesser of our product is needed to exert the same effect. Therefore, I think we're doing a lot of innovative and exciting work here. This kind of work builds a strong foundation for long-term NIH support. And we are actually advancing towards a very promising breakthrough in cancer therapy. Like Dr. Patel said, that students from all stages work in our lab. And I have a master's degree from SIUE School of Pharmacy, and I am able to do my continued research in this innovative project because I'm a co-op PhD student, and the co-op program with School of Pharmacy and School of Medicine allowed me to do that kind of work. Therefore, I'm very grateful to the board and the School of Pharmacy and School of Medicine for giving us this opportunity to showcase our research. And I'm happy to take any questions. We all are. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Questions or comments from trustees?
So with the EEG 29, I understand what it's doing. How did you come up with EEG 29?
We came up with,
Can I answer?
Sure.
So I did some molecular modeling or computational work when I came to this university as an assistant professor. And I tried to understand the interactions or how the two proteins E4E and 4G binds. Based on that, it's still a proprietary information, so I won't go much into the technical details.
I wouldn't understand anyway.
So that's what I use. In the previous literature, the previous failures, as Amrita mentioned, from other groups all over the US, did help into that. And that's what basically the drug discovery process is. So we learn from the failures. And it's a compound that was completely created in the lab.
Other questions or comments?
Yes. Congratulations on your findings. And I believe you all have what it takes to find the cure for cancer. My question, you said you're in your third year of 4 for the NIH. Does NIH grant any extensions? Will you be able to
So
extend your grant?
if the money is left, they do provide a 1-year no-cost extension. But our plan is to apply for bigger grants. So we have sustained NIH funding, and we already submitted 2 grants this year. And the end of last year. And we plan to submit 2 more grants somewhere in fall, sometime.
Wonderful. The, go right ahead.
Trustee Hightower, just if I could take a moment to appreciate the leadership in the School of Pharmacy. During the presentation, I had the opportunity to look over here at one former dean and the current dean, and both of them were smiling as the student is making the presentation. I can tell that they're very proud of the research accomplishments that have been made in the School of Pharmacy. And it is a remarkable story, but it is the result of their leadership, and I just want to acknowledge that. The second thing is we're referencing the NIH grant. And most of us lived in the beginning of this federal administration with all kind of upheaval with respect to federal research grants. And I just want to underscore for the board that this is one of the grants that we were concerned about and could be subject to being revoked. And I want to just tie that to, as I sat here listening to the presentation probably for the second, third time now, I can't help but to imagine the discovery happening in the lab here. I mean, I can't help but to imagine how powerful that would be, not at Harvard, but here at SIUE. So thank you for your work. I want to encourage you to keep going and just wanted to express my support and appreciation publicly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Feiner.
I just had a comment, not a question. I thought that was a fantastic presentation. You're taking a subject matter that I think is something that not a lot of people get on the level that you get it. So I think you do a fantastic job of breaking it down and making it something that we can understand. And I love how excited you are about it, because curing cancer is exciting, right? So I love that you're excited about it and that you're working on it for SIUE. So thank you.
We appreciate the appreciation.
The success of the School of Pharmacy, it goes without question, has been major to this area. and across the country. There are two people that I know, trustee Simmons and Tetrick, will appreciate this. There were two people who fought tooth and nails when we were trying to bring this pharmacy to this area and fight in, Springfield, let's just call it a spade, and that's, former President, Glenn Bouchard and Representative Jay Hoffman. So again, big kudos to those two individuals. Every now and then, we just need to thank them for fighting tooth and nails to make this happen. Certainly, I know you two trustees appreciate the efforts that they put in to make this a reality. So thank you much for the presentation. Great job. Moving on, the next item. The discussion of tuition and fees. President Williams.
So before we get to that, I just want to say too, a reminder to everybody, we do get state support for that, and Representative Hoffman and others were responsible for that, and again, could not be doing the things we're doing without that. So we're good with the legislature and the governor continuing to support it. It's tradition. We present in February a little bit of an overview of our tuition, where it's at, before actually presenting a proposal for an increase at the April meeting. So we're not presenting any proposals this meeting. That will happen in April, and that's what we've been doing for the last several years. Although I will say there's one exception: the School of Medicine will actually be presenting tomorrow their proposal for an increase for a number of reasons, including some things happening at the federal level that seemed appropriate to move that forward. But we're going to keep with the tradition for Edwardsville and Carbondale. So now I will turn it over to the chancellors to discuss tuition. And I think Chancellor Minor, you are first, if I remember correctly.
Yes, thank you, President Mahoney. Very brief, but as the president suggested, I just want to benchmark where we are with respect to tuition and fees. It's a reminder for the board. I usually start the presentation talking a little bit about the context in which we're considering tuition and fees at SIUE. We have all heard about the demographic lift and the demand for seats in college classrooms, and that does change our approach to tuition and fees. And in some spaces, there's conversation about what the market will bear. But it really boils down to the choices that families have when they're looking at SIUE compared to lots of other institutions across the region and across the country. It is more competitive. The one note that I would mention here, I sometimes translate enrollment management speak when I'm talking about competitiveness and what we refer to internally as the discount rate is for any incoming cohort, right? What percentage of the tuition and fees that they would pay that we're going to discount them in some form of institutional aid. And about 10 years ago, that was roughly 17% was our discount rate, I believe, in 2016. Today, it's roughly 33%. Right? And the question is, do you want 50% of a family's money or zero? I think that's an easy answer for us, but that gives you a sense of what the competition is, even for pricing the actual cost of attendance. It used to be the case for families, let's say from a household of $300,000, they would arrive to SIUE and ask, where do we pay? Right? We then take some portion of that revenue and try to supplement students who couldn't afford college. That same family is arriving today asking, how much are you going to give us? Just a very different environment. And so even though they're able to afford college, especially at SIUE, it doesn't mean that they're willing to pay for it. And if the three institutions to our left, the three institutions are to our right are offering that same family some form of institutional aid, if we're going to be competitive, we have to do the same. So I just want to give you a sense of what that is. And that is a new expectation, right, from families who typically could afford college. Next slide. Here's what enrollment looks like at SIUE. It's just a picture of what we've been able to do with, I think, competitiveness in terms of the cost of attendance. Right now, we're at 1283. You just see this dip from 2019 until now. And so I think tomorrow you'll hear a little bit more in my report to the board about our expectations for fall enrollment. A big part of our enrollment campaign is not only being more competitive for new students, but also retaining a greater number of students who are already enrolled. So much of our ability to keep college affordable is to keep current students enrolled. And so you don't have this sort of backfilling problem from one fall to the next. I'm going to just show you one aspect of our enrollment here. So this overall first to second year retention rate is for all students. This black bars for domestic students, we have distinguished this just given what has happened in the last year or so. National students, which will be counted in the overall number. But for domestic students, this is at about 80%, which is really good. I want to draw your attention to this African-American retention rate, fall to fall. Just a couple of years ago, that number would have been 68 or 65%. That means that for every 100 students who started in the fall, only 68 in 2023 for that cohort, 65% of them would have been returning for their second year of college, right? For students who began last year, 81% of them were back for their second year of college, which is not only a tremendous jump for us institutionally, but when you look at where all Illinois public universities are across the board, this is really distinguishing, right? Nationally, it's about 72%, and that's all institutions you could imagine at UT Austin, University of Michigan, U of I. Those places are going to have higher retention rates given the profile of the students that they're enrolling. But if you look at Illinois State, you look at Iowa State in terms of where some of these other institutions are, the University of Kentucky, Missouri State, this is remarkable. Now, some of these data aren't available yet, but when it becomes available, we think that this is going to be pretty distinguishing for SIUE. There are not a lot of other institutions in the country that look like us that are retaining African-American students at 80+%. So it is a remarkable achievement for our student success team here at SIUE together with the provost and Dr. Harris and the team. They've done a wonderful job. And the key is to maintain this, right? You want to see the same numbers in 2025 and 2026 going forward. But this has been a big part of our strategy in terms of not only enrollment, but also retention. So just a little bit about accessibility and affordability. About 36% of our students are Pell eligible. It is a common proxy for low-income students. About 50% of them are graduating without debt, which is really remarkable. And here you see the average student loan debt for those who do take out loans. It is not only below the national average, it is also below the Illinois average. This is just to take a moment here. When we're talking about college affordability and the decisions students are making to enroll in college or not, I continue to be surprised by how much of a barrier borrowing still is for a lot of families. Even in this case, right, we're talking about for a college degree, you're going to graduate, and this is your average student loan debt. And you take 23,000, 24,000 with a degree where you're going to decide to sit out is a real choice for a lot of families. Right? So the students who come to me and say, Chancellor Minor, I'm sorry to tell you I'm not going to be back next semester. It is because they have an aversion to borrowing, even if it's $5,000 to keep them in school. So it is a part of our college affordability and tuition and fee sort of how do you afford college campaign with a lot of students and families, a big part of what we're working on. Here are all of the need-based aid programs that we have. Obviously, the federal Pell Grant, MAPIS, and Aim High are state commitments. SIUE commitment and SIUE Go are institutional commitments that we're making to families who are arriving with a household income less than 113,575, right? We're making a commitment to those families to cover tuition for them. Merit-based scholarships are on the right. The Meridian Scholarship is our highest, most prestigious scholarship. The Provost Scholarship and Codes covers tuition. And then you've got Cougar Pride and Janetta Haley. Here's what it looks like on paper. We're required to publish this by the federal government. Undergraduate tuition and fees, and really we're combining those as a common practice in higher education, room and board. And so you see the total cost of attendance there at the bottom. This slide just shows you by comparison, the institute on the left are Illinois public institutions of higher learning, right? Colleges and universities, public colleges and universities in Illinois. The top set are doctoral granting institutions. The bottom set are master's degree granting institutions. And in both cases, you'll see that SIUE is either near or at the bottom of that list. So this is sort of a picture of affordability in the state as we're trying to provide this to families and they're making their choices. With respect to room and board, let me just go back if I can. The reason we publish tuition and fees, and you're going to see this separate, there's still a significant portion of students who do not live on campus, right? So if you're still living at home, you have some other non-residential living arrangement, tuition and fees is really the number that we're talking to those students and parents about. If you are living on campus, the room and board rates are here. This covers residential living arrangement and a meal plan on campus. It's roughly $11,231 annually. And again, just looking at where we are among other public universities, it's pretty competitive. My team over here would argue that I should be here advocating for increases just because of what is required to maintain this, right? And so they would tell you the box of chicken tenders that we're selling in the dining hall significantly more today than it was just 2 or 3 years ago. Vice Chancellor Rachi would tell you the price of turning over those mattresses in the residence hall significantly more expensive today than it was just a few years ago. So this is not easy to do and it creates pressures in other parts of the university. I'll stop there and take any questions, but that gives you a sense of where we are on tuition and fees here at SIU.
Chancellor, what percentage of our students here live on campus now?
It's roughly 30%.
67% live off campus or at home or. Other questions or comments?
I know you're not asking for increases today, you're just giving us information, but did I read recently where the University of Illinois has already published what their increase are going to be at 2%?
Correct. Correct.
Who's your biggest competitor these days? You or 2 or 3 that you're looking at as you go out and try and recruit?
So I would argue Illinois State, Northern Illinois, for students who are going to be coming from Chicagoland. The U of I Springfield are picking up a number of students. And so it's other regional publics. Now, it's a tricky question because the student that we're saying yes to, there's something that's happened, Dr. Hightower, where the University of Illinois has had one of its largest incoming classes in history. The University of Michigan has record applications. So something is happening where flagship publics are reaching further down in their applicant pool. So the student 3 years ago that would not have been admitted to U of I all of a sudden is, that student may have come to SIUE. Those students are no longer available. So it's strange to hear me say in this meeting that U of I is a competitor, but But I think in some ways we are losing students to flagship publics. And because of some of the out-of-state reciprocity agreements where Kentucky, Ole Miss, LSU are waiving out-of-state fees. In some cases where you have reciprocity agreements, we're also hearing from parents that their student might have a neighbor whose student is enrolled in Kansas, right? So it just gives you a sense of how dynamic and how different the environment is today compared to a few short years ago.
Other questions, comments? Moving on, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would answer that pretty close to Dr. Minor. So just, we think everybody is.
We've been staying at home.
You breathe it, you think of college, you're enrolling students, you're on our list. You know, this is so timely to have this presentation. The last 48 hours, me and my team have been all over the Southern Illinois region, been a little bit over Metro East, St. Louis. And the number one question that we get with students as we're trying to yield those students, we already have them applied, they're already ready to get here, but their number one question is how much does it cost? Right. And so very timely that we're having these discussions, because as we work through those award letters for students based on their student aid index, you know, we really are trying to yield them to get them to come to Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. So you gave me this and I don't have a clue what. What do you do? Right here?
Right here.
Yeah, you got this high tech stuff. We don't have this back.
I'll give you some.
It's like these bottles of water and we don't have all that. But
You're gonna have to get more competitive.
we have to step our game up. So this will, we'll dig right in, and some of this may look similar, but the numbers are different. If you look at our annual tuition over the last couple of years, I think our last tuition increase was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So we took it back to 2022, but our last increase was in 2019. That, as you can see, pretty flat, or actually 100% flat through this past fiscal year. We have increased in some fee areas, so you get a sense of where we are in fees. And when you see the spike in the tuition fee revenue, that's just the enrollment bumps that we're able to see over the last couple of fall semesters. So that explains why that number is going north. It's now where it is, 114 million. Our state appropriation, you'll see that over the last couple of years has inched up. We're happy about that. But that gives you an overall look on our tuition and fees. And I'll bring in the room and board cost in just a minute, but we really talk with students on that 9,638, 3,906. It's about 13,500 or so. What we really do from that number is we work that number all the way down doing the award letters. So we start to put on MAP, and aim high, and Blue Key commitment, and you'll see all these things that we try and creatively do to bring that bill down in tuition fees. It feels like almost like a game here in doing that, but it really helps students and their families understand that they can afford going to school. And once you break down those numbers, they really realize that, oh, wow, maybe I have a shot at doing that. The next slide just gives you a sense of institutions. You mentioned, we were joking about competitors. What we're finding and answering that question is probably students that are in that top 10% that are really focused in on that R1 doctoral research institution. We're having students at our high schools tell us it's between us and University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, or University of Illinois, Chicago. They know enough in the state about where those R1s are when they're looking at research and the faculty that are there and what we're doing in research. And those students in those STEM areas, they are very astute to where they want to focus in on, if that's in the state of Illinois. There's some other schools outside, obviously, of our state that those students are looking at as well. And we know who they are. If you're R1, if you're going out to Missouri, bless you. If you're going out to Missouri, you've got to go all the way from public to University of Missouri. Going private, it's flu. So we know just about what's happening over there for those students that are coming out of St. Louis and where they're looking. Same thing if you go east, Indiana, Purdue, we know who's going there if students are leaving, going out of state. So those are the kids that we usually come down to their top 3 or 4 schools that mix down. That's changed since we hit the R1 designation. So that just gives you a sense of where they are tuition wise. As you can see, we're much the lowest R1 in terms of cost on this sheet here. So I really want to talk about, again, a kind of a nice demographics of who we have. So 43% of our students are Pell eligible students. We still have 37% first generation. The debt numbers you can see, 20,536. And then the donor funded scholarships, we probably don't give this enough credit. This is coming through our SIU Foundation. This really is the game changer for us if we're competing to get a kid, because they only want to know, again, they understand they're getting whether it's MAP or AIM High or any of these other scholarships that are coming from the state, but there's still about a $2,500 to $3,500 gap that we're trying to fill for students, especially if they're living on campus. So that's really where we get into that last minute, where can we find the money? Because if they're coming from Chicago or St. Louis or other areas, they have to live on campus. And so that bill, it goes up. When you start putting tuition fees, room and board, you're looking at about 25,000. And I think it's coming up on one of our next screens here. So this is again, the donor funded scholarship piece for us. Our foundations has allowed us to seal some deals, extra money that we've been able to put on students across the board. Now this slide is going to show you all the ways that we tap dance when we're talking to parents, especially in our region. Most, I think you would know this, trustee, you know this, but I think our average household income is probably hovering about 40 some odd thousand, roughly. So think about this. This is 120,000. This is our Saluki commitment. So 120,000 and below. This is a household combined income, and we are able to cover the tuition and fees of our students. This has really helped us significantly. So if you look at the new student count, you've got 647 of those students at 2.9 million. And we offer the same Saluki transfer commitment for transfer students. Our community colleges love this because usually the scholarships are going towards freshmen. And so when we talk to community college presidents, they love that we are not forgetting their students who are going to transfer. And as you can see, there's 118 of those students that are there. Again, it's more of a last dollar scholarship. Think of it that way. So we are applying MAP, Pell, everything else that they're eligible for, and then we're coming in as a last dollar piece to help those students to be able to get the tuition and fees covered. So that's how we operate. When I started here, I think we started the promise, Dr. Mahoney, a couple of years ago. We were at 63.5. That number has climbed now to 120,000. So this is a big piece in our region. When you look at the average household income, and so when families are aware of this, it really helps us again seal the deal with those students. Every student that comes into our institution gets a scholarship. And these are the levels of scholarships that they come in. As you can see, it's based on a GPA. We do not have SAT, ACT requirement. We went away from that even before I arrived. But that 275 to 299, that scholarship will be at $1,500. So that's a student coming in at the admission requirement of 275 to get a scholarship, and then that works all the way to university excellence at a 3.8 or higher. As I mentioned, the last 2 days, we've been giving out the Chancellor Scholarship. So what we work to deal with our schools in the area and even outside our schools where the counselors are actually awarding the scholarship to their top tier students in their high schools. And I think we're giving out 40 some odd scholarships this year. That number is 34. I think it's up to 40 this year. I can't tell you the parents, their kids, their families that are there, the counselors, when we go into these schools, they're in tears. I mean, they can't believe that's $108,000 4 years that is covering these students. And just like you heard from the school pharmacy students, when they started that slide out, it went right over my head. I don't have a clue what they were talking about. So whatever you guys are teaching is fantastic. When I meet with our students the same way, they are doing things and saying things that are absolutely incredible. And they will find these cures for cancer and everything else that you're talking about. So that's some great kids coming our way. Our transfer scholarships, again, back to our community college students. This is again what they want to hear, is what are you going to do to help our kids transfer? And as you can see, we have put some commitment towards helping those students in each of these categories. And I think it just makes the difference when they see that there is a way to go to a university. And I think that's why we have the tag of that R1 Opportunity University. I care more about the Opportunity University than I do R1. Probably get in trouble for saying that. But that opportunity piece really relates to what we're talking about today, keeping it affordable, but still knowing that, you know, we've got to operate. We've got to make sure that, you know, we have the resources to be able to do things like pay our faculty and our staff and make sure that they are continuing to be retained at our institution. So I think that's the last piece of my slide. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Question or comments? Both of you, from my perspective, you're doing an outstanding job of recruiting students. It's obvious. We're seeing the evidence as we have former trustees as well as current trustees. That's been a priority of ours. Briefly tell us how you are working to keep those students there with everything being so competitive now. How are you keeping them? Just briefly, if you don't mind, both of you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is something that we have worked hard last 3 years. I'll just name two things that I think have been important for us as a university community. One of them is more philosophical than tactical. It is simply trying to make the university community more fluent in our student success outcomes. And Dr. Hightower, the way that I talk about this, I would argue 3-4 years ago, I would say if you stop 100 people crossing the quad at noon and you ask them what our first and second year retention rate was, or what our 4 6-year graduation rate was, most people know, which sounds really strange in the university community, but it was not something that we were having robust conversations about as a university community. And when the numbers went up on the screen, a lot of us were uncomfortable about where we were, particularly for certain populations of students. And so I think as a university community, we're much more aware of where we are, and we're much more aware of our institutional goals with respect to student success and student outcomes. So that's more conceptual. Tactically, there have been a number of things that we've done. I'm only going to mention one, and that is direct admission. Just a few short years ago, we would have said to John Simmons, you want to be a political scientist, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a nursing major. You have to go over here first and complete this set of courses, and then we'll let you know if you're actually going to be a nursing major, right? So we had pre-engineering, pre-nursing, pre-this or that. And I think it was clear that it sent the wrong message to students. And we saw departure among students who were in good academic standing, perhaps because they didn't gain access to the major of their choice. Working together with the provost and the rest of our executive team a couple of years ago, we decided we were going to discontinue that practice and move towards direct admission. So now, there was a stat that I just couldn't forget. At one point, more than 64% of our incoming class was undeclared. I just think about that, right? That they didn't have an academic home, they didn't belong to a department, was extraordinarily high. And we took it upon ourselves within 12 months, right? We decided by this time next fall, every student who arrives at SIUE wants to declare a major will be allowed to do so. And that, I think, has made a tremendous difference, especially on the retention front.
Yeah, I think just echoing that, our approach is to spend high touch. Right, just understanding the data that's out there, not arguing with it. A couple of years ago, we were very aggressive in our enrollment efforts, and we pretty much brought the campus community together, and we said, guess what, guys? We can either keep talking about how bad we've lost students, or we can talk about how we want to gain students. And so over the next couple of years, we saw some increases in success because everybody gathered together and started working together. Then we looked at the data, the retention data about then how do we keep these students here? And you're stealing a little bit of our shine tomorrow, because I know Dr. Mahoney, we all got these great presentations about these retention numbers that we're going to share with you tomorrow that are, I think, are outstanding. And I've never seen anything like the numbers that Dr. Miner was talking about with students of color at an institution like this is unheard of. I've never seen that in my life. So hats off to you, Dr. Miner, and what you guys are doing here. So our numbers look really good too, because we focused on the provost and I yesterday were in an advising call or faculty senate call. And, you know, we talked about the importance of our advisors, the work that they do to get our students or to keep our students. And then our faculty are just outstanding. You know, they go the extra mile. And so I think all of those things together, putting the focus on it, looking at the data, believing what it is and not taking it personal and just trying to put strategies together has been the key for us.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I was
Mr. President.
going to add real quickly. I think one of the things, when you look at increases in retention, it's not one thing, it's a lot of things. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. And they talked about several of those. And I think Chancellor Lane talked about, but I'm sure Chancellor Meyer would say the same thing. One of the things I think that's interesting, I find a lot with families is when you tell them how much it's going to cost, they focus on the first year and not what's going to happen in year 2, 3, and 4. So a lot of times those foundation scholarships and those additional scholarships we're able to give later can be the difference between a student being retained and not being retained. And I think both campuses have done a good job with that. I will say the other thing, and they both mentioned this, and this is very different than athletics. No one's offering our students $3 million to go someplace else. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, but what they're not doing as effectively as I think they've both taken a leadership role in doing is providing more scholarships for transfer students. That a lot of places really have not caught up with that. And so they're not sealing away students from us as much as they might have, and we're seeing with athletics. And whereas we are doing that, and I think that was it's been a good strategy for us.
Outstanding. Thank you. Anything else from the trustees? Yes.
Just a quick comment. I love what you said, Dr. Miner, about direct admission to a certain program or college, because if I would talk to nursing students, talk to 10, number one thing they're interested in, and they're going to look at the schools that give direct admission versus I got to do 2 years of electives and maybe I'll get in or I'll have to transfer. So that to parents and students is number one. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
So starting with the class of 2027, the state of Illinois will have one-click admissions for public universities. How do you see that affecting Carbondale, Edwardsville?
You know, we had, but we think it's gonna just obviously increase the number of applications. And that's great, but our applications are up today. So our strategy is still to focus on yielding the applications that it's really about the yield, because that number will go up. We have a Say Yes campaign that we do now that is kind of ahead of the one-click sound, but it's ahead of the one-click. So we've already been doing that and letting students know if they have a 275, they're admitted. They just say yes. And we've been doing that now since a year, maybe a year and a half. So our biggest focus though on those numbers that will increase is just yielding them. We've got to yield.
What is the GPA for one click? Do you know?
But still, it's still tied to the institution's entry admission requirement.
Thanks.
Next, we will close the meeting to go into executive sessions. I'm moving to close the meeting to the public for the purpose of considering proceedings against or on behalf of the board appointment employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or representatives. Our deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees and review of executive session minutes. Relevant sections of the Open Meetings Act statute as proposed for this closed session are 5 IL CS 122C1, 2, 11, and 21. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Avezina. Barnett. Connolly.